week 16 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few kickers I would start this week. The first kicker, Cameron Dicker of the Los Angeles Chargers. Dicker having another great season, one of the best kickers of all time in terms of accuracy-wise. And this week, it's a great matchup going to Dallas, where they give up the 10th most fantasy points to kickers on the season, and also this defense can't stop anyone. Where I think the Chargers will be in the red zone early and often in this one. So the last few weeks for Dicker, week 13 versus Vegas, 9. Week 14 versus Philly, 20. And week 15 in Kansas City, 11 points. And obviously, those field goals were huge to win that ball game and knock Kansas City out of the playoffs. So like I said, Dallas, they can't stop anyone. This is an indoor game at Jerry World. And Cameron Dicker, once again, I believe, goes out there, has a good game. And also, this offense has been stalling out a lot over the last few weeks. Next kicker, Ka'im Fairbairn of the Houston Texans. So Fairbairn, it's been a monster season for him. I know he missed some time with injury for a couple weeks in week 10 and week 11, but he's been back and he's putting points on the board. And this is an offense that obviously they stall out in the red zone a decent amount, but this week with a great matchup with Vegas coming in, giving up the 11th most fantasy points to kickers on the season. I think 3 or 4 opportunities easily could be there this week if I keep Ka'im Fairbairn to kick. In the last few games, week 12 versus Buffalo, 10, week 13 in Indianapolis, 8, week 14 at the Chiefs, 7, and week 15 versus Arizona. Like I said, the big game, 17 fantasy points. We left some more points on the board where one of his kicks got blocked. So Fairbairn, he's been a good kicker all season long and for the last couple seasons. And this week with a great matchup versus Vegas, I think once again he hits double-digit fantasy points. Next kicker, Will Richard of the Minnesota Vikings. So very underrated kicker is Will Richard, and he's still out there in over 70% of fantasy leagues. So this week it's a great matchup with the New York Giants, where they give up the 12th most fantasy points to kickers on the season. So Will Richard, he's got a good boot. 50-plus yards isn't a problem for him. He's been a very accurate kicker early in his career so far. In the last couple weeks for Richard, week 13 at Seattle, they got shut out. So obviously he had 0. Week 14 versus Washington, 8. And week 15 at Dallas, 11 fantasy points. So this week with a good matchup at the Giants. I know outdoor game, weather could be bad, obviously out there. But Will Richard, it hasn't been a problem for him. And like I said, he's been an accurate kicker since last season when he was with the Minnesota Vikings. So Richard this week, I think he goes out there and he's a good option for owners. Once again, next kicker, Eddie Pinheiro of the San Francisco 49ers. Pinheiro, he returned to the lineup this week, Pinheiro, and he had a good ball game, 14 fantasy points. So this season, every game he's played in, besides 3, he's had double-digit fantasy points, is Eddie Pinheiro. So he's been a nice pickup for this San Francisco 49er team where it wasn't working. Mooney, they cut him loose the first couple weeks of the season, and Pinheiro's come in and he's putting points on the board. So this week, a good matchup with the Colts. Obviously, an indoor game. Don't have to deal with the outside elements. And also, this Colt defense, they're bend but don't break unit. We saw last week Jason Myers hit 6 field goals in that game. So this week, I think, once again, Pinheiro's going to get a few opportunities in this one. We know he's been a good kicker this season and definitely a kicker to start this week. And the final kicker, Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks. So Jason Myers, he's been the best kicker, in my opinion, in fantasy football. And he's now been on a tear, 6 games in a row with double-digit fantasy points going back to week 10. Week 12 at Tennessee, 13. Week 13 versus Minnesota, 19. Week 14 at the Falcons, 13. And week 15 versus Indianapolis, 24 fantasy points. Like I said, he had 6 field goals, including a game winner in that one. So this week, it's a matchup with the Rams coming in. Put points on the board versus this Ram team where they got to keep up with the offense. And this defense is a good unit as well of the Los Angeles Rams. But like I said, Jason Myers, in my opinion, has been the best kicker in fantasy football this season. 50-plus yards. He's been making it easy all season long. And this week, back home once again, where he's been even better kicking at home. He's an easy start this week. So that's a few kickers I would start for week 16 of the fantasy football season.